Again, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the 23rd Annual Pennsylvania Abandoned Mine Reclamation Conference. We want to thank our sponsors, the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection, the Pennsylvania Environmental Digest, the Foundation for PA Watersheds, the Appalachian Region Independent Power Producers Association, or RIPA, Pennsylvania Aggregate Concrete Association, and Pagnotti Enterprises. Participants, we're going to ask, you can ask questions through the Whova question and answer or chat box to the right of the video on the web app and below on the mobile app. Hold your phone or tablet in profile view to see the Q&A. Questions will be asked of the presenters live. Time permitting, and the speaker will follow up on additional questions via chat after their presentation. Please do not chat in the Zoom player, that creates some issues. For Tom, I want to let you know that I will turn my camera off as you start your presentation and back on 5 minutes before the end of the session, and that will be the start of our question and answer session. This session is 40 minutes. And again, I'd like to thank you for joining us. And I'd like to introduce Tom Clark. Tom has a BS in biology from the University of Pittsburgh and an MS in biology from Cal University of Pennsylvania, working as a research assistant under Dr. William Kimmel. For the last 15 years, Tom has served as mine drainage program coordinator for the Susquehanna River Basin Commission, where he specializes in the treatment of abandoned mine discharges and the reclamation of abandoned mine lands. Prior to his tenure at SRBC, Tom ran an independent watershed consulting business for 7 years, serving multiple clients in Western Pennsylvania. Tom lives in Indiana, Pennsylvania with his wife, Christy, and their identical twin sons, Adam and Alec. Tom, I'm going to turn it over to you and turn my camera off.
Thanks, Jay. Good morning. Once again, my name is Tom Clark. I'm going to talk to you about the Bear Run Watershed Renaissance Project. This is a presentation I've probably given before, and you might have seen it. But I added some things, and obviously at the end of it, we're going to have a video where we talk about the operation and maintenance of those systems, since they are what I would call elderly. Some of those systems are nearing 15 years of age. Most of them are still working fairly well. There's a few that need a little bit of tweaks because they're getting to that point in life. But I'm just going to start into this. I'd like you to remember this picture, as I will end it with a picture of what that section of stream looks like now. Give you an idea of where the Bear Run watershed is. That is the West Branch of the Susquehanna River. Bear Run is here, my cursor. Extreme western portion, most of it in Indiana County. That's where a lot of the mining has occurred in that watershed as well. So just give you a little background. Bear Run restoration, it was the first Watershed Renaissance grant awarded in Pennsylvania. It was $1.4 million. And it was going to fund phase 2 and then phase 4 through 8 of the reclamation process in Bear Run. Phase 1 and 3 were completed via other grant sources prior to this grant. And all of that, we were able to save funding throughout the phases to the point where we had essentially snowballed some funding, which allowed us to do a 9th phase, which was a large land reclamation project in 2015. But that's when essentially all the projects were completed in 2015. So give you a little taste of what we've done. Bear Run's interesting stream. Multiple mine seams were mined, so obviously you get different water qualities off of those mine seams. So we have everything from alkaline iron to acidic, a little bit of aluminum, to really acidic, high iron and aluminum. So depending on what seam was mined. So the first phase was completed in 2007. As you can see, it's verging on, what would that be, 15, 16 years old. It's a staggered aerobic wetland pond system, and it's treating the largest source of iron loading in the watershed. And like I said, this was a project completed before the Watershed Renaissance grant. There's a picture of it. You can see the iron precipitating out through the system. On the left there it's a net alkaline, barely net alkaline flow. As you can see, we pick it up a good bit through the system, and we drop the iron out a good bit as well. That is the south branch of Bear Run prior to treatment. I'll remember those two rocks, and there are those two rocks after the system. So it's done its job. We touch upon the maintenance needs of that system in the video. It is to that point where some things need to be done to allow it to have 5 to 10 more years of more longevity. We bounced around here. We named the phases according to where they were at in the watershed, but we bounced around in terms of how we were getting funding. So we completed these things not in chronological order. So phase 3 was completed next in 08. It's a manual flush OLD. This is on a discharge that is net acidic, really no iron, very little iron, and it has a moderate amount of aluminum. Got a growing greener grant for that. This system is working really well still, and I don't remember us really ever touching it. If you have the right water quality and you build a proper OLD, they'll work for a long time. You can see the pH and aluminum in and out. We were just up there not too long ago and threw a sonde in, and it's still pumping out high pH. Like I said, not touched very much. This is what it looked like a couple years probably after we built it. Now you can't even see that limestone. There is some maintenance needs there just because there's birch trees growing up out of limestone now. Just kind of needs cleaned out. But like I said, it's still pumping out really high quality, high pH water, even today. Phase 2 was the first project that was completed under the Renaissance grant. And it was pretty extensive. You can see a fairly large project, $500,000. And the reason it was so much because there was a lot of different types of problems there. Completed in 2010. We had a large alkaline high iron source coming out of the Johnstown coal and coke mine. So we needed an aerobic wetland there. We had ponds on site. We had refuse removal we had to get done, AMR reclamation, channel restoration. So there was a lot going on there, and that's what the site looks like today. You could see the net alkalinity and iron in and out. So it's doing its job, still working very well. That's what that site looked like prior. It was probably one of the uglier sites in Indiana County. And that's what it looks like today. To the left here is our large aerobic wetlands. Then that water goes down into, these were old sed ponds of the Johnstown coal and coke operation that we reconfigured, and we essentially use it as a final polishing pond. And the landowner, this is private property, the landowner uses this as a rec pond. He has it filled up with, catfish and bass and things like that. So it's littered. I took my kids up there not too long ago and had a blast. That's what that polishing pond looked like while we were working. As you can see, it was utilized by the coal company for sedimentation. And what we did is we kind of just went in and took out the berms, and we made it one large pond, one large polishing pond. What we also found is very high quality, high BTU coal silt there. I think it was virgin on 10,000 BTU that we were able to sell to the Emsburg power plant, the cogen plant. And I think we sold it. It's been so long, but I think we sold it for like $7 or $8 a ton. And the property owner got 50 cents a ton, I do believe. So it was a win-win for everyone. And that's that pond today. There's my cursor right there. That's that pond today. It looks very different. This project I'm very proud of. A lot of this was black rock, no vegetation. Looks pretty good. Now we get to some of the projects that haven't worked that well. Phase 5 was a lime silo that we installed in 2011. These are on discharges that are coming off like I think it's the Brookville or Clarion seam. So they're pretty hot. They have iron and aluminum on them. We weren't very confident in treating them with a typical passive system at the time. So lime silos were the new thing. I kind of liked them. We put one in. It worked well for a while. But what we learned through the process is that if you aren't there very regularly, when I say very regularly, I mean at least once a week, these things won't work. So we're at the point now where we're taking a look at the discharge has improved in the last decade in terms of quality. So we're taking a look at, well, maybe we can treat this passively now. But for the time it was working wonderfully. It's like I said, though, you got to be there all the time. The lime bridges, water clogs, everything you would think. It's a machine. It breaks down. Phase 7 was a little simpler. We had a small discharge coming out of the Banks number 3 mine that was going into a tributary of Bear Run called Murray Run, upstream of Murray Run, very clean, nice population of brook trout downstream of that discharge. It was impacted, no brook trout. So what we did there is we used a very small amount of money, created a limestone channel along, I think that's it's Harkle Road. And what was nice is those seams of coal are much more elevated than the stream. So what we did is we kind of just level spread the limestone channel effluent into the forest. I don't think I've ever saw an ounce of water make it to the stream. It just gets sucked up by the forest vegetation. So we essentially just eliminated that discharge. As you can see on the left there, water quality, pH, alkalinity up, all your metals down. And that was a brook trout that we caught downstream of where that discharge used to be. And I'll talk a little bit about Murray Run a little later. I think in the video I touch on it. Once again, we put 2 silos up there, one on the discharge, which was the previous one. This one we put up on a tributary that kind of got a lot of diffuse seepage water that was very adverse. So we actually were treating the stream. Same thing happened here, though. It was working for a long time. But if you can't get up there, particularly like during the winter months, we're talking very rural. We're talking about roads that aren't plowed. If you don't get there every week, these things are going to fail on you. And that's exactly what happened there, to the point where we're looking at taking this silo out and maybe just doing some lime sand application in that tributary now. A lot cheaper. We can do it once a year and just not have that headache of the silo. So we're kind of getting away from these things. That's what that silo looked like there when installed. Phase 4, which was completed in 2012. Once again, water quality that is very, works real well with an OLD. And there was some on-site refuse reclamation that had to take place there. And it's a Superior mine blowout, about $150,000. Right before we were ready to construct, the Superior mine blew out, though. I'll see if it works. You know how technology is. That was the mine blowout that occurred right before construction. We knew there was a mine pool that was increasing there, and our construction was one of the 3 things that mine pool. Well, we didn't get there in time. It blew out. That's a lot of fun. Lots of water. Once everything subsided, though, we went back in and put in a redundant collection system. You can see the entry to the mine there with the timbers. It was quite interesting. And that's how we collected the water then. This is what the site looked like previous. Right there was the blowout, right here on the side of the mountain. That's where the entry was. Blew out this road. This is Sydney Road here. Blew that out. So we had to do a lot of just fixing of it, a lot of things around that blowout area. That's what that site looks like today. Here's your OLD. This is all reclaimed refuse here. It was low BTU, so we recontoured it on site, clay capped it, brought in soil, seed mulch, and it's now a food plot for the Game Commission. This system works very well, treats water that is easily treated with an LD, and it's been a good success. It's pretty high flow, so we're pumping in decent amount of high alkaline water with that system. That's what the refuse pile looks like now, the buried refuse pile. Like I said, Game Commission loves it. Full of wildlife now. Used to be black rock. A smaller system we built, once again on a discharge acidic, a little bit of aluminum, manual flush OLD. It was on a small unnamed tributary of Bear Run, but it was kind of destroying that, because it was so small. So we captured it, put in an OLD, and you can see the water quality really good coming out. It's been a real success. Once again, I don't know if we ever touched this thing. the one thing we try to do is we try to capture the water from the mine underground, bring it into the system underground. The first time you see that water is when it's flowing out treated. In that way, you keep leaves out, you keep the water cold. There's a lot of benefits to it. So that's the way we've been building. As I said, each project, we came in under budget. Great thing about working in Indiana County and not like Harrisburg or Philly, you tend to get better bids. So we were able to kind of snowball money as we went, and we completed our project. I think we're going to be able to. It's a large refuse pile down by the Phase 5 silo, about a $300,000 project. What was great about it is that there's a tributary to Bear Run called Keel Run that really didn't have any discharges on it, but what it was, the mining company essentially lined the banks of Keel Run with their refuse from the mines. So we were able to take all that refuse out of Keel Run, bring it down to this large pile, and then recontour everything, clay cap it, soil, seed, mulch. We put in kind of like a kidney bean set pond there in case we did get a little, adverse water off of that site. And, when you compact everything, you kind of make a stormwater situation there. So we did that. That's what that site looks like today. Once again, this is on State Game Lands 174. Big food plot. Game Commission loves it. And this is what Keel Run looked like. So there's these refuse piles that were lining Keel Run. I'll ask you to remember these evergreen trees here. Those are those evergreen trees now. So you can see all this was all refuse here. We pulled that all out, took it down. Now Keel Run is restored and it has brook trout throughout. So what kind of improvement did we get? South Branch is where a lot of these discharges were. You can see the acidity reduction and particularly the aluminum reduction. You get acidity and aluminum out of a situation, you're going to be able to move fish and macroinvertebrates back in. Still a little touch of iron. There are some untreated surface mine seeps that we're still dealing with, and I'll tell you how we're dealing with them here coming up. But because of that, we're seeing these guys along the South Branch, a little younger to year brook trout there, moving in. I was there not too long ago at the Phase 5 area, went down, did some stomping around, and I was kicking out brook trout everywhere. So it was a good feeling, knowing that stream is still functioning well. Bear Run, so South Branch and North Branch come together, and then you have about 5 miles of mainstem Bear Run. City reduction, aluminum reduction, you can see that's all important there. And on Bear Run, it's a little more substantial stream. North Branch is pretty good quality. Well, I shouldn't say it's pretty good, it's really good quality. So Bear Run is now really good, and you get large native brook trout there, larger native brook trout that I've ever seen anywhere else. So all you fishermen out there, I just gave you a hint. I have caught myself, and I'm not a very good fisherman, I've caught myself native brook trout in the 13-inch realm. They are large. They are fed well. They're eating each other. They're fed well. Large brook trout there. And it comes all back to this. What have we done to the fish population? So in 2008, this was down at McGee's Mills on Bear Run near the mouth. We had one species there. It was all creek chubs. I think we caught like 10 in 2008. So as you can see, each year we increased that to the point where last time we did it, sorry to say, we've been trying to get back into there, but you know how things go, and you're always off to the next project. But we had 9 species and over 50 individuals, including brown and brook trout. So all that work within a 4-year period brought back the fish. So what are our current efforts? Fishing boat just classified nearly the entire watershed as wild trout fishery. Fishing boat also classified the North Branch and Murray Run. Remember, Murray Run is where we have one of our systems as Class A brook trout fishery. So we were real proud of that. What's nice about that is it gives those streams automatic HQ status. The North Branch was even EV'd, and I do believe that's the only EV stream that's in Indiana County. Once again, sampling of macroinvertebrates and strategic states and see if the stream can be delisted further. We have failed to do that because we're always off to the next project. However, I've got an IUP student up there now who is doing her master's thesis, and she's looking at those macro populations for me. So I just kind of spread out my work to someone else. But it's real difficult to get back in when you're looking at the next project goal. We're still working with the Game Commission to soil amend bandly reclaimed surface mines in the food plots and new forests. We've done that in a few areas real successfully. It's those areas where we have seepages still coming out. They're very hard to collect and get to an area. They're diffuse. So we're trying to, improve the soil, improve the water. So that's one of those sites that we did. We brought in paper mill sludge, mixed it in with the black and unvegetated rock and seeded it, and that's what you get. That's Adam Conch in there from the West Pennsylvania Conservancy. I told him to get in there because I wanted to see if that grass was up to his ass. It was pretty close. So yeah, I mean, that's how we're kind of dealing with these seepage areas, just trying to minimize them, improve the quality, lessen the flow, things of that nature. So I told you, remember that stream, the real orange stream in the beginning? That's what it looks like now. There's brook trout everywhere. It's a very scenic area. SGO 174, I think, is a game land that doesn't get a lot of pressure. So if you ever drop by, take a look. Lots of systems to go and look at as well. So now I think we'll see how this works. Now I think I'm supposed to show the film. Correct me if I'm wrong, anyone.
Correct, and you can just continue to share, and it should go over seamlessly.
You tell me if it's working.
Looks like it's working.
Okay, I will shut my mouth. Here's a virtual tour of Bear Run.
Standing at the Bear Run Phase 2 project. I do believe it was completed in 2009. Bear Run was the first watershed that received the Watershed Renaissance Initiative grant money from Growing Greener. So we were able to fund multiple projects throughout the Bear Run watershed, 9, I do believe, by the end of it. This is the Johnstown Coal and Coke mining property here. Not only was there a deep mine here, there was a lot of buried coal silt, what ended up being high BTU, and we were able to sell that to the Emmitsburg Cogen plant. There was a lot of reclaim that had to happen here. Banks pulled back, recontoured. But there was also a very large deep mine discharge here, several hundred gallons a minute. I think it was 12 to 15 parts per million of iron. So easy to treat, but a lot of water. We had a property owner here that wanted to create some habitat as well. So we tried to accommodate him here. And as you can hear, there's a lot of ducks and geese and utilizing what we built. Typical wetland, aerobic wetland passive treatment system. Comes out of these wetlands, goes into a final polishing pond, which was 3 coal silt ponds that were full of real high quality, real fine coal. We were able to dig out and sell as well. And then what we did is we just took the berms out of those coal silt ponds and created one large polishing pond at the end. And it's worked really well here for the last 12 years. Water quality is good. The upper end of Bear Run was restored by this and was removed from the impairment listing because of this project.
And so we took all the water out of the silt ponds, and then there was like 3 feet of really good coal silt that we were able to sell to Cogen down in Emmitsburg.
Yeah.
But what we did then is we took the berms out and then just converted them into this final, whatever you want to call it, polishing pond, rec pond for the property owner.
All right, so the Indiana County Conservation District holds the trust fund for the Bear Run projects. We also do regular maintenance and sampling of the different systems. We sample at least yearly, preferably quarterly when available, and check on the systems monthly.
This is actually a slope mine. So that one was a drift, so the water was spilling out. This one's a slope. They mine downwards, so it oozes. So that's the entry right there. So that water's just oozing out. Mm-hmm. And it's this is higher iron. This is about 30 or 35 parts of iron, lower flow than that over there than phase 2, but it's a lot more iron. I think this is when you do the loading. I think this is higher loading, than the one over at phase 2. Not alkaline, so easy to treat, but the system's been online now for, well, we're in our 14th year, so it's at that time where it needs some love and affection, you know, some TLC. So, but it's minor, you know, the TLC's really minor, you know. You can get away with, you know, a few $1,000, I think, could fix the issue and make it run happy again for 5 or 10 more years, you know.
That's good.
What you could do here too is just make this higher. You know, come in here with, get the water out of there, come in here with more cement, make it higher so that it doesn't come out as, you know. But I think the major problem, you can see, those are narrow leaf. I think they're called narrow leaf broad cattails, narrow leaf. They get real clumpy. And when they get going, it'll push water where you don't want it to go, because they almost act like a dam, you know.
That's very exciting.
Tell you one thing I do here is that thing's going to need maintenance every once in a while. If you just got some big riprap and just spilled it out there, just so you can get out to it, just so you can walk out to it, you know. That trash rack may be, there's water going down it, but it may be plugged out a little bit. That's one part of the problem. The other part is, so this pond was built deep, shallow, deep, shallow. That's, we were trying to get oxygen into the water, turn it fair, have the wetland, collect the fair, so on and so forth. Well, over time, you know, this thing was built 14 years ago. It's just, the shallow areas are a lot more shallower than they used to be. They just, to me, they just need dug out. So to me, it's just like hiring a, you know, an extended boom backhoe or an excavator and just kind of getting that back to the elevation it used to be, which is probably a few feet down from that. So we got a pretty heavy flow, a couple 100 gallon a minute, acidic, moderate aluminum. When I say moderate, I'm talking like 5 or 6 parts. So it's really just acidic water with a touch of aluminum in it. So really good for an oxic limestone drain. We just built a really large one because of the flow. I do believe this was built in, I want to say 10 or 11. So it's about a decade old. You start getting some vegetation at the top of it, as all these do, but the rocks are pretty clean down to the bottom still. I've been told it treats well still. And this is coming out of the, I do believe it's the Superior #1 mine, old Benjamin mine. And then behind us is all, that's all buried refuse there. There was a lot of low BTU coal refuse on site that wasn't marketable. Well, at least it wasn't, we were too far away for it to be marketable. So we recontoured it, brought in clay, put about a 10-inch clay cap on it, soil over top, seed mulch. So obviously it looks a lot better now. State game lands, so they really like it. They look at it as a food plot, you know. That's what we try to do for them in a lot of these cases. A real successful project. This was probably one of the worst looking sites in the county, in Indiana County, before we did it. It was bad looking. So always pretty pleased with how this turned out. You got this, Robert, here? Yeah. All right. You familiar with these? Not really. Full stop log. So you put this, you put that in there, and then you yank those stop logs out. Okay. They're rubberized stop logs. And what that's going to do is just going to control the elevation of the water within there. And the way I flush these is that I pull 1 or 2 at a time, let it drop, pull 1 or 2 at a time, let it drop, pull 1 or 2 at a time, so you're done. This one's going to take a while. This is an all-day job probably to do it. Lots of flow, big discharge. Sediment. So what I usually do is I usually wait till after a big precip event. Come up here, high flows, now flush. That's what I do on all these types of systems.
There's no lime in there right now.
We think it's empty. We need to actually climb up to the top and look. It is
Might be caked or
It could
something.
be clogged. But
Yeah.
we do think this one. So the two things we think this one needs is it needs refilled, and then the pipe coming across, I think it needs snaked out.
Okay.
Did you even want to do that though?
I mean, not if we're going to replace it.
That's what I'm wondering. I'm wondering if we
Yeah.
take steps to maybe answer that question before you do anything
Yeah.
in terms of maintenance. That'd save you time and effort, money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If we're planning to replace it anyway, I wouldn't want to put too much effort.
So if the aluminum's coming down on that thing, we might be able to get away with what we built up there, but an underflow. And the way we're doing those now is that we're putting larger limestone on the bottom because that's where you're going to drop aluminum out. And then your flush mechanism's down there. So where you're dropping your aluminum is also where your flush mechanism is. And then we've been putting solar flushers on it. So you flush it like daily. And that keeps the aluminum from clogging up your system.
Yeah.
If the aluminum is any lower than it used to be here, we may be able to pull that off. And what's nice about that would be a one cell system, because then you would run your effluent down into that channel and into that set pond, and that'd be your set pond there. Paul brought that down to here. Recontoured everything, same thing, clay capped, mulched, seeded. That's a big food plot for a game. Never plant trees here though, because they'll get into that clay, and then there's not good stuff underneath that clay.
Okay.
Yeah. Like up at Keel, we got the virgin ground there. We just took everything and brought it down here. This and up at 4, where we're at, don't plant any trees in there. So this is the confluence of the North Branch and the South Branch. South Branch is where all of our systems are, and there wasn't much known about the stream. It was very rural, it's within SGL 174, so we had to walk most of it. And I think we found like 28 distinct sources of mine drainage pollution. After we sampled those, over that typical year, ran the loadings and everything, we found that I think there was like 9 of those 28 that were contributing like 80% of the pollution problem. So we concentrated all of our efforts on those 8 problem areas, and that's what we did. So the Renaissance plan, I think we started moving dirt in 06 or 07, and I think we were essentially done with those 8 initial projects I talked about, I think in 15. I think was the last, when we moved that refuse up there, I think that was 15. So 9 years. 9 years we did 9 projects. The first systems were built on some of the larger discharges, so we saw quick improvement there, Some of the later projects were more mine refuse reclamation, so they were more diffuse issues but those first systems, that's where we got the big bang for our buck. So we started seeing improvements quite quickly.
Yeah.
With that, then we had particular stations on Bear Run where we not only took water quality samples, usually quarterly, but we also did yearly fish surveys and macroinvertebrate surveys. And over time, we started seeing fish come back into areas that were fishless before. I know down at the big thing was down at the mouth of Bear Run was fishless when we started. And then the last time we did it, which was several years ago, I can't remember which year exactly, but we found 54 fishes of 9 or 10 different species. So we went pretty high up there, down in McGee's Mills, where this goes into the West Branch. And like I said, that we started seeing fish from the North Branch move into the South Branch. Usually small fish that were probably being run out of town by bigger fish. They were trying to find refuge somewhere. So they went into the South Branch, and now the water quality isn't perfect, but it is good enough for that young brook trout to get in, hide a little while, grow a little bit, move later. So, but like I said, it's one of these things where we have to get back in. Probably, I'd like to do it this fall and see how much we've come since then. But we've had certain sections of this removed from the pollution listing. The section down by McGee's Mills was removed. The section up by Lockville up around phase 2 was removed. We got this Class A, North Branch Class A and EV'd. We got Murray Run Class A and high quality'd. And that's a tributary we have a system on.
So spent a lot of money, but we got a lot of improvement here. But we could do some more. Still needs to be some work. There's some seepages up there that you really can't capture and treat. So last couple of years, I know we've been working with the Game Commission to try to, there's some black rock areas up there. So we've been bringing in paper mill sludge, mixing it in, creating food plots for them, hoping that better soil quality then leads to better water quality, coming off. And these are situations where it's not much you can do there. They're crop line seeps, and you can walk a half a mile and it's oozing out the entire way. So what do you do there? Anytime you're doing like a watershed wide improvement where you're going to have multiple projects, particularly multiple treatment systems that need to be, of the watchful eye, there needs to be some sort of, money in place that allow that to happen over the long term. Because as I was saying before, it's real fun and easy to come in and do the pre-post, get that treatment system rocking, and then walk away and then go off to the next project. But who's going to do that? Maybe the unexciting work, the unglamorous work of making sure that system continues to pump out good water so that we don't lose our gains. And I think that's the big thing. But you got to have a source of funding to make that happen. And it doesn't have to be a large source. Like I was telling Robert here up at phase 1, I think he could get we're treating probably 95% of the flow there. It's probably 5% that's getting out of the spillway. I think a day backhoe time can make that 100% effective. So we're not always talking about a lot of money, but there needs to be something in place to allow that to happen.
All right. Everyone still hear me? I'm assuming.
We sure can, Tom.
All right, Ed. I'm not very, you know me in tech. Any questions? And I know I'm trying to bring up the.
Janie will help you through your questions, and there are quite a few over there on Hoover.
Okay.
Yeah. This was an early one in your presentation, Tom. It said, what is done with the precipitated iron?
So what's nice in these situations up on Bear Run is that phase 1 and phase 2 were completed on iron discharges, but we overbuilt those. We had enough land up there where we overbuilt the systems. So we have storage there that is pretty significant. Phase 1 is getting to the point where we got to think about, all right, we got sludge built up here. What do we do with it? But it's still working fairly well. But we're at that point. A lot of the other discharges that were treated up there were acidic aluminum. So we don't have any real iron to speak of in those situations. Like I was saying in the video, that's the easiest water quality to treat, or those situations that are acidic, little touch of aluminum on there, because generally you're not getting a lot of material, that you have to deal with later. So we have it's almost a very perfect situation up there for those types of systems.
Okay, there's another question here that says, have any areas that need reforested in the watershed? So
it's been highly surface mined. And like I said in the video, we've been working with the Game Commission to ID some of those areas that, one, they want to turn into food plots, which is better than what's there, right there. Like I said, there's some kind of like some unvegetated black rock areas there. We've worked with them to create food plots. And then there's these other areas that they would like to have reforested. So we've been working as well there to help them with that. So I know the Conservation District has done some tree plantings up there. I've done some tree plantings up there. So it's a continual process here. For those of you that are listening too, I know, I think Eric Oliver's listening as well. Eric and I are doing a lot of reforestation work around Pennsylvania, and we're getting to the point where we have more trees than what we have land to put it on. So if anyone is interested in trees and reforestation work, particularly on mine lands, let me or Eric know about that. We'd love to come out and take a look and get you on the list.
All right. Of all the problems with the Swedish lime doser, what was the primary problem?
Man, Adam could probably answer this better than I. He probably dealt with them more. You know, you get condensation in them. I would say this: you get condensation in them. What happens is that lime will then kind of cake up and it bridges, and then it won't dump lime. So then you got to get in there and bang it with a sledgehammer, or even worse, you have to open it up and kind of try to get the spill out. And I know Adam, you know, I was up there one time for it as well. He's had some times where it spilled out and burned his arms in a couple. You know, you're dealing with a chemical there that can, you know, it's hydrated lime, so it's very highly alkaline. But you can have situations too where you're trying to gather water and you're trying to get water in it, so it's tipping that sluice bucket, and that can cause problems. It all comes down to it's a damn machine, and machines break, and if you're not there all the time, it's going to fail. And that's why I thought they were a solution to those situations where you're like, really, can we treat this passively? And in my opinion, they're not. So we're trying to get away from them again. It's a good idea, but as some of those go, they don't work out.
There was another question that actually I believe has been answered by one of your friends, but what is an OLD?
So an OLD is what we call an oxic limestone drain. So you might be familiar with an ALD. ALD, you're building on a system that has no dissolved oxygen. And usually what it has high iron, low aluminum. So you keep the oxygen out so you don't precipitate your iron, run it through a buried system, and they work really well. But how many times do you have an acidic only iron situation? Very infrequently. OLDs work in those situations where you have acid, a little bit of iron, maybe a little bit more aluminum. And the way we've been building them is that we're trying to capture the water in the mine, so you don't even see it. You know, we'll put redundant piping in, capture it, bring the water in from the bottom of the OLD, build it up through head pressure, because that's where your flush mechanism is at the bottom. So that's where you want your aluminum to fall out, because that's where you're going to flush it from. And then piping it out from the top. So the first time you see the water, it's being treated, it's the treated effluent. So that minimizes, you know, detritus getting in, clogging up things, this and that. Keeps the water cool. We're all trying to get brook trout back. So keep the water underground, you get cold water out. So, but they work really well if you have acidic, moderate, low to moderate aluminum, very little iron. They work great.
This also references the OLD. Did the Phase 8 have a flush pond or need one on that OLD?
No, the Phase 8 had such small amount of aluminum. Like I said, we were kind of awarded up there with discharges, which are essentially, you can classify them as really just acid water with a little touch of aluminum. And Phase 8 was the one that had even the lowest amount of aluminum on it. So essentially you have 3.5 pH water with 50 to 100 parts of acidity and very little metals within it. So in those situations, there's nothing to flush in those. Like I said, we built Phase 8 now. Oh, I want to say, it's been a while. I want to say it was 13 or 14 we built that. I don't think we've touched that damn system yet. And I was up there not too long ago, and it's still pumping out high pH water. But you got to have that situation. We were just kind of blessed with it up there, Ron. Those discharges worked for that type of system.
All right, and there's just two more really quick questions.
Yeah.
Do you monitor regularly for trout and other aquatic life?
Not as much as we should. As I say, I'm a victim of always thinking about the next project, and I'm trying to improve that. I'm trying to get back into these areas where we built and to monitor. We haven't done it on Bear Run for quite some time, minus me going there with my rod, minus me going there like I did recently, kind of just walking the stream and, seeing torpedo fish flying out here and there. We haven't done anything scientifically for quite some time. We're trying to get that on the books. We're just so damn busy. I think everyone needs to do it more. Like I said, including myself, I'm the worst of it. So yeah, we need to get back in and do it again.
And the last question, is there any potential mining in the future? And how will the project affect the operators, or will mining not be allowed?
Yeah, I don't know how much mining there is up there. Much of that was mined. Obviously, it's owned by the Game Commission. Coal prices are down. I mean, they've ticked up here recently a little bit, but I mean, coal prices are down. You don't see much activity. I don't anticipate additional mining going on up there. Not saying it wouldn't. I don't anticipate it though. In terms of how that would impact an operator, it may now, because we've reclassified these streams. They're now WTs, they're now Class 8 in some regards, they're HQ'd and EV'd. So that may make the situation more difficult for someone who is thinking about doing it. But man, I don't anticipate it, just knowing the present state of coal mining. I mean, Morgan Stanley took all their assets out of mining, so that should tell you something.
All right, that ends this session. We thank everybody for participating. Thank you, Tom. Also, we want to remind people, track your professional development hours and visit our exhibitors and sponsors. Thank you. Have a good afternoon.
Thanks, everyone.